You open your eyes to the warm haze of dawn over the Red Fort in Delhi. It's the early 17th century, and the Mughal Empire is humming along in peak decorative flourish. The sun doesn't rise so much as it reclines upward, the way a courtier might drift into consciousness during a poetry recital. There's jasmine in the air, of course there is, and the call to prayer fades into the chime of silver anklets somewhere nearby. You're not sure if you're dreaming, or if dreams just decided to stay awake with you this morning. There's silk under your fingertips, and you hear a pigeon arguing with another pigeon over who owns the ledge. Somewhere, someone's grinding spices, and someone else is falling asleep on purpose. Professionally, you see, you are not a warrior, not a poet, and definitely not a prince. Not this morning. You're something far stranger and significantly more horizontal, the official nap-taker of the Mughal court. Your job, should you choose to accept it, and you have, because saying no would be rude and sweaty, is to sleep, publicly, in a manner both dignified and inspiring. Now, before you drift too deep into existential inquiry, let's set the mood with a cheeky warning. You probably won't make it through this day. Not because of danger, but because everything is designed to lull you into dignified slumber. Brocade pillows, flute solos, an endless supply of cardamom milk. It's the dream job, quite literally. So, while you're still a bit conscious, we gently ask, like this video if you're enjoying the ambience, subscribe if you'd like to visit more slow, strange corners of the past, and leave a comment telling us your local time and where you're tuning in from. It helps our sleepy little archive grow. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. The floor beneath you is cool sandstone. Someone has spread a length of cotton muslin between two marble columns to diffuse the sunlight. You're lying on a sharpaya woven rope bed that creaks in the most dependable way, as though it too is taking a deep breath. You're not alone. A eunuch fans you with a palm frond dipped in rose water. Somewhere to your left, a court scribe is scribbling furiously. Not because you're doing anything, but because your state of nap is being observed for record-keeping. The Emperor Akbar began this tradition, and his grandson Shah Jahan has, shall we say, expanded the budget. Yes, the same Shah Jahan who built the Taj Mahal, but before marble domes and grieving poetry, there was a man obsessed with symmetry, silence, and the aesthetic of sleep. The court calendar included designated napping hours, not just for children or the elderly, but for the elite. And someone had to model it perfectly. Someone had to show the rest of the court what a proper nap looked like. That someone is you. A pigeon lands near your feet and coos once, loudly. Your attendant shoos it away with a hiss. Tragedy narrowly averted. In the distance, the imperial garden is being raked into meditative patterns. A boy is learning the sitar badly, and the rhythm of his mistakes reminds you of distant thunder, or of stepping on a wet sandal. A strange cultural detail. Mughal nap theory. Yes, this was a thing held that dreams were portals to divide wisdom. If a court napper dreamed of rain, it might signal a shift in the emperor's military schedule. If they dreamed of fire, it might mean trouble in the Gujarat province. If they dreamed of goats, well, there's still no consensus on that one. Historians still debate whether dream interpretation in the Mughal court was symbolic, spiritual, or just a convenient excuse for some very fancy lounging. You roll slightly, not out of discomfort, but for dramatic flair. The court artist captures your movement in a sketch. You hope he got your good side, or at least your least sleepy eyelid. You close both eyes again. Time folds like muslin in the breeze, and somewhere in the back of your mind a thought emerges. It is deeply weird to be paid, to nap. But not unpleasant. The world is a blur of warm gold and hushed footsteps. You are dreaming maybe, or just gently vibrating between states of existence. Either way, you're committed to the bit. A professional napper cannot show weakness. You maintain the expression of someone who is spiritually serene, yet physically bored. A subtle balance, perfected through hours of soft squinting and elegant sighs. The scent of sandalwood has thickened. That means the emperor's astrologer has entered the garden. He likes to oversmoke everything with incense. It helps clear the energies, or so he says. You once heard him mistake a beetle for an omen, so you take his guidance with a sprinkle of salt and a generous nap. There's a minor commotion behind the jasmine hedge. It's the herbalist arguing with the royal chef about the sedative properties of nutmeg. Apparently, someone slipped too much of it into last week's goose stew, and a royal dancer fell asleep mid-performance. You're mildly impressed. Falling asleep during a Mughal drum solo is like dozing off at a fireworks factory. Still, decorum must be upheld. You stretch one foot outside the sharp eye, a classic move in the art of performance relaxation. The court artist leans in again, sketching furiously. A fly tries to land on your cheek. You flinch, an amateur mistake, but recover quickly with a well-timed yawn. Your attendant praises your natural fluidity of repose. You nod imperceptibly. Of course, here's your historical fact for today. During Shah Jahan's reign, the Mughal court employed sleepwatchers, yes, actual people tasked with guarding the dreams of important figures. Their job wasn't to prevent nightmares, but to catalog sounds, smells, and changes in temperature during the sleeper's session. Why? Because if anything unusual happened, the dream might be interpreted differently. Sleep was not a private event. It was a shared, almost theatrical act of governance. Meanwhile, your dream, or whatever this is, deepens. You think you're on a boat, or a giant mango. It's hard to say. But a parrot is talking to you in Persian, and it seems to be scolding you for not drinking enough fennel tea. The sharp eye creaks again, a soft reminder that you're still here, still napping, still mildly important. A small bell rings near your ear. It's not meant to wake you, just to signal the change of hour. Afternoon is approaching. Soon you'll be moved to the shaded inner pavilion, where the floor is cooler and the fabrics are changed to linen. Here's a weird cultural tidbit. For you, the Mughal court believed that naps taken facing west were spiritually cleaner. The east, associated with the rising sun, was considered too lively for proper rest. So every sharp eye in the palace is aligned like a sundial of leisure. The empire may be vast, but your nap must face the correct direction. A scholarly uncertainty lingers in the garden. Some accounts suggest the nap-taker tradition was symbolic, not literal, and others swear the roll came with a silver brooch and an official title, Rahat-e-Zaruri, or the necessary calm. Unfortunately, the archives are vague, and many nap-related documents were later used to wrap pickled mangoes. A tragic loss to academia. You're led now with great ceremony to the inner pavilion. Two boys carry your fan. A girl sings softly about clouds. It's probably a weather report. Someone brings you sweet rice which you eat half asleep because chewing is optional when your job is dreaming. You settle into a larger, firmer sharp eye. This one smells faintly of camphor and crushed lime leaf, a good sign. Someone has placed a small carved elephant at the foot of the bed. It's your nap. Totem, meant to anchor you to the material world that the marble floor beneath is dappled with shadows from the lattice windows. You feel them moving across your skin like lazy paper boats. You are still. You are silent. You are possibly snoring dot, and somewhere outside, beyond the hedge and the arguing herbologists, the empire hums quietly along. Your job is working. You drift somewhere between the folds of linen and the folds of time. In the Mughal inner pavilion, even silence has a texture. It clings to the carved columns and pools in the corners like rainwater that's too shy to evaporate. You lie there, half sure you're awake, half certain you've become part of the furniture. From your current vantage point, which is mostly horizontal, you observe that the palace ceiling has hand-painted vines curling toward an imaginary sky. Birds flutter between the leaves, frozen in brushstroke flight. One of them looks suspiciously like a peacock. Another is definitely a camel with wings. It's best not to ask questions. The nap continues. You are 3 hours in now. In modern terms, that's roughly 1.5 Marvel movies. Here in Shah Jahan's court, it's only the halfway point. Your breathing is being monitored discreetly by a young scholar from Bukhara. He's taking notes on your chest movements, mumbling something about respiratory rhythms of the elite. You hope he writes a paper on it. You also hope he doesn't quote you, as you've said nothing for the last 180 minutes except one very polite snore. Someone offers you a small pillow. It is filled with crushed vetiver root, which is either an aromatic sleep aid or a fancy way to attract ants. In either case, the scent grounds you, tugging gently at your brain like a lullaby in botanical form. Today's historical fact floats into focus. Mughal court etiquette manuals describe the ideal nap posture in detail: left side first arm bent beneath the head, with knees drawn slightly upward to signal noble repose. Lying flat on your back was considered too militaristic. Curling up too tightly, on the other hand, was seen as peasant behavior. The nap was not just a function, it was a statement. As you shift slightly to achieve this noble repose, a soft rustle alerts you. Someone has entered the pavilion. It's the royal cat, or perhaps one of them. This one is named Tilla, meaning golden. She inspects your positioning with the same intensity usually reserved for treasury audits. She then sits at your feet and promptly falls asleep herself. You take it as an endorsement. From outside the stone lattice, voices murmur in low tones. Diplomats are visiting today, and the emperor is in a mood. You wouldn't know. Of course, you're not required to attend. But your state of rest is now symbolic. The idea being, if the official nap-taker is unbothered, then all must be well in the empire. It's a peculiar form of propaganda, but effective. A breeze curls in, carrying the smell of dried oranges and saffron. Someone is cooking. Something you'll never eat, but that doesn't stop the scent from wrapping around your brain like an edible lullaby. Your stomach grumbles once, discreetly, like a bureaucrat asking for a bribe. Here's your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mughal dream interpreters believed that seeing a monkey in a dream meant political betrayal. but only if the monkey was wearing jewelry. If the monkey was plain, it just meant you needed to eat more lentils. There's a tap on your sharp eye, gentle, rhythmic. It's the musician of repose assigned to your service. He doesn't play an instrument, not exactly. He taps a small copper plate with his fingernails in hypnotic patterns. It's like Morse code for sleep. You want to ask him how he got this job. Then you remember you're not supposed to talk. The hours stretch. Like fabric pulled on a loom dot, one scholar yawns and apologizes. You don't. You're the professional. The fly from earlier returns, possibly the same one, possibly its cousin. You let it land this time. You are magnanimous in your stillness, and then, almost imperceptibly, the light begins to tilt westward. Even. The sun is getting sleepy. On 4. The shadows shift like well-behaved ghosts, sliding across the marble with the obedience of courtiers. Afternoon is winding down, though that doesn't mean your workday is over. On the contrary, twilight naps are considered the most delicate, the most spiritually permeable. You are entering the realm of the serene sleep where dreams are. Said to hum like distant bells, you're gently repositioned again. This time onto a divan layered in silk and Kashmiri shawls. Someone fluffs a cushion behind your neck. Another hands you a small bowl of warm almond milk laced with poppy extract. You sip it through half-lidded eyes, like a monarch too dignified to slurp. The court librarian walks past, carrying a scroll taller than he is. He eyes you with mild jealousy. You consider offering him a corner of your sharp eye, but that would break protocol. Besides, you're fully booked. Here's your historical nugget of the day. The Mughal court sometimes used sleep sessions to determine judicial clarity. Noblemen would be encouraged to nap before giving verdicts, with the belief that dreams might reveal divine truths or subconscious moral leanings. A sleepy judge was seen as more honest and less likely to throw a fit. Outside, a pair of parrots begin a loud and animated debate, probably over the ripeness of a mango. A eunuch tosses a pebble to quiet them, missing by a wide margin. The parrots ignore it, their tiny squawks echoing off the sandstone like dramatic whispers. You shift under your shawl and resume your duties, which is to say you relax very convincingly. There's now a subtle expectation that your facial expression might reveal something profound, a crease of the brow, an omen, a twitch in your eyelid, a message from the divine, a hiccup. Well, that's probably just lunch. Scholarly uncertainty rises again, like steam from warm ink. Some chroniclers claim the position of official nap-taker was a metaphorical title given to philosophers or mystics, while others insist there was a literal sleeper in residence with attendance and a salary. Naturally, the truth is buried somewhere under layers of embroidered titles and faintly ridiculous job descriptions. There's a soft sound. KHRRRK, quill scratching across paper. The dream recorder is back. He's been taking notes on your micro-movements. Earlier, he wrote, subject's pinky finger twitched at 2:37. Possible omen of irrigation success? You admire his optimism. Obscure fact time. The Mughal Emperor Jahangir once kept a detailed dream journal, believing dreams to be visitations from angels or sometimes from his late father, Babur, who occasionally appeared holding cabbages. Interpretations varied. A slow drumbeat begins in the outer courtyard, not for alarm, just the daily rhythm to cue the lighting of lamps. You feel the heat of the day retreat as if pulling its robe back over the horizon. Somewhere in the palace, a scribe sneezes. It echoes. The palace smells of roses and faintly damp paper. Your nose itches. You resist scratching. You are a professional after all. The emperor himself is rumored to be watching from behind the lattice today. Not in judgment, but curiosity. They say he once attempted to nap publicly and accidentally drooled on his lap. Ever since, the task has been outsourced to those with steadier jaws. You think of this briefly and almost smile. But the nap holds. You fast. The musician of repose taps again, this time slower, fewer notes. The rhythm slows your breath without you even trying. It's an acoustic hypnotism, and it works. Your head dips, just slightly. A pillow is placed before it can fall. You're halfway through the day now, but time has softened. It no longer ticks or tolls. It shimmers, and so do you. By now, you've surrendered entirely to the rhythms of the Mughal court. Even your bones seem to exhale as the light deepens, slipping from gold to amber. Somewhere, a curtain sways lazily in the breeze like a slow nod of approval. You are, officially and thoroughly, asleep. Adjacent. Evening has crept in, barefoot and unannounced, softening the edges of the marble walls around you. Lamps are being lit, one by one, casting honey-colored pools across the floor. Each flickering flame reflects in polished surfaces, making it feel like the stars themselves have decided to pop in a little early. You blink. Just once, a professional. Napper may blink, but only if it contributes to the aesthetic of calm surrender. Yours is timed perfectly. The scribe notes it down in the dream log. Blink at 5:42. Poetic, likely meaningful. The divan beneath you now feels like a boat drifting on a syrupy river. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you hear a musician tuning a sitar, each note stretching like a cat in sunlight. You remember that street you passed earlier, the one with the hawkers selling pan leaves and secrets? Well, it's quiet now. Everyone's winding down. A new figure enters the pavilion, the whispering historian. Her job, to gently recite boring facts near your ear to lull you further into relaxation. Think of it as a royal podcast. Her voice is low and rhythmic, telling you all about tax reforms in Bengal and irrigation policies in Punjab. It's incredibly soothing. You never realized how comforting land assessment tables could be. Here's your historical fact for this. Nap stretch. During the height of the Mughal Empire, some elite courtiers used trained pigeons to send messages. During dream sessions, small scrolls tied to their legs with summaries of what the napper had reportedly seen. Were these visions divinely inspired or just leftover thoughts from lunch? Hard to say. The pigeons never gave interviews. Your attendant adjusts your blanket with surgical precision. The temperature has dropped just enough for you to notice, but not enough to be uncomfortable. A touch of clove oil is dabbed behind your ears. It's said to anchor the dream within the body. Or maybe it just smells nice. And now, for your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mughal poets believed that sleep was the only state where the soul could wear its true clothes, imaginary garments made of silk, moonlight, and occasional goat hair. As far as metaphors go, it's unusually specific. The court cat, Tilla, returns. She brings with her a small dead gecko, drops it beside your sharp eye, and curls up with a look that says, "You're welcome." Your scribe nervously writes, "Feline omen." Possible foreshadowing. Consult dream priest. Outside, crickets have begun their nightly orchestration. Their chorus swells and fades, swelling again. It sounds like applause from a very tiny, very polite audience. You imagine they are clapping for you. Not because you've done anything, just because you've continued to do it well. And now, a scholarly uncertainty drifts in with the wind. Some argue that the role of nap-taker was a covert way to protect sensitive figures by surrounding them with attendants and keeping them stationary under watch. The court could disguise security under the veil of serenity. But no spy has ever come forward to confirm. Spies rarely do. Your breathing slows again. Your heart sinks with the distant drum. You do not dream of battle or treasure or grand declarations. You dream of folding napkins, of turning pages, of watching someone else sweep a floor you don't need to walk across. A cup of warm saffron milk is offered. You sip. It tastes like melted sunset. And then you sleep a little deeper, not from exhaustion, but from approval. Night in the Mughal palace is not silent. It is delicately choreographed. The lanterns flicker like little constellations. The fountains hush themselves to a trickle, and the very air seems to sigh. Your nap has transitioned smoothly into the nighttime portion of its schedule. This is not rest. It's ceremony. You are repositioned once again. Not rudely, never rudely, but with the precision of a sacred ritual. Now you're reclined on a silk hammock stretched between two carved sandalwood posts. It's designed to sway slightly with your breath. You are now the pendulum of peace. A servant arrives bearing a scroll. He unrolls it reverently. It's today's record of stillness. It logs every flutter of your eyelashes, every shift of your pinky toe. Somewhere on this very paper is written, "Subject exhaled with grace at 3:26 p.m." You never imagined exhaling could be evaluated, but here we are. The moon is rising now, pale and round as a fresh roti. Shadows crawl along the mosaic tiles like cats on a mission. And speaking of cats, Tala is back again. This time she's brought no offerings, just judgmental eyes and a readiness to nap beside you, tail curled in a perfect loop. Her snore is softer than yours. You're not offended. She's royalty too, in her way. And now you're historical. Morsel for the evening. In several Mughal courts, particularly under Emperor Humayun, there were debates held in semi-sleeping states. A practice called Sukani-Kab, or speech of sleep, where scholars would lie half-reclined and philosophize until they either reached an epiphany or dozed off. Most reach the second outcome. You shift your shoulder. The scribe notes, momentary discomfort, possibly a metaphor. We'll analyze. Meanwhile, the whispering historian returns. Tonight, she murmurs facts about barley production and ancient boat taxes. The delivery is so soothing that it takes you 3 full minutes to realize she's listing wheat varieties in alphabetical order. You're weirdly okay with this. Here's your obscure cultural tidbit. Mughal belief held that if you dreamt of an onion, it meant someone was hiding the truth from you. If you dreamt of peeling one, you were uncovering layers of the soul. If you dreamt of eating one raw, well, you probably just ate too late. Your fan-bearer has switched to a slower rhythm now. Each sweep is spaced perfectly with your breath, like a duet between flesh and feather. You've reached what some call total nap immersion. The moment where you're not sure if you're floating or sinking, but it doesn't really matter. Distant flute begins to play a lullaby written for the emperor's third daughter. It's said to cause geese to sit down and guards to yawn. A dangerous tune in the best way. Outside the palace walls, the city of Delhi slumbers in its own rhythms. The markets are closed. The dogs are whispering instead of barking. Somewhere, a poet sits under a fig tree and writes about the moon as if he were the first to notice it. A final note of scholarly uncertainty before you drift deeper. Some argue that the role of official nap-taker eventually evolved into a ceremonial position that no longer required actual sleep, just the performance of it, like an actor in an eternal bedtime play. If true, it's the world's most dignified form of pretending. You feel yourself becoming less a person and more a symbol of calm, of composure, of absolute permission to let go. The musician of repose plays a single note on a bronze bowl. The sound rings like a soft bell inside your chest, and everything slows again. The night deepens, thick as velvet, and your hammock sways with the breeze like a cradle built for grown-ups with excellent taste. In the Mughal court, time doesn't just pass, it drips, pools, and eventually evaporates into the domed sky. You lie perfectly still, not because you must, but because there's nothing more dignified than doing absolutely nothing with great commitment. From somewhere unseen, a servant wafts rosewater across the pavilion using a soft cloth. The scent floats like memory faint, sweet and probably overpriced. It mingles with the quiet plucking of a veena in a far-off corridor. The tune wanders a little, like a musician who forgot where he left his sandals. You inhale slowly, your body so relaxed it might be mistaken for architecture. The scribe nearby nods approvingly. He's invented a new scale to measure serenity, and you are currently ranking somewhere between deeply composed and emotionally gelatinous. Tonight's historical fact glides in like a particularly elegant moth. Mughal nobles were known to host night gardens, elaborate sleep-themed gatherings in open courtyards, complete with scented breezes, poetry whispered through latticework, and timed yawning contests. Yes, contests. The winner was usually the one who could yawn while keeping both eyes closed and not blinking. Very niche talent. You begin to drift again. A dream stirs. You're floating down a river of milk, past mango orchards and bureaucrats waving scrolls. Someone offers you a napkin. You accept it with great spiritual gravity. Then, naturally, you fall asleep in the dream. That's 2 naps, nested like decorative boxes. A nap within a nap. Very advanced. Meanwhile, the court astrologer appears. He doesn't speak, he just walks slowly in circles around your hammock, counting your breaths and muttering planetary things. You catch a few words: Saturn, alignment, and possibly soggy figs. It's hard to say. His accent is thick with mystique, obscure cultural tidbit, some Mughal physicians believe that snoring at exactly 7 breaths per minute was evidence of divine alignment. There were even charts mapping ideal breathing patterns to specific suras or classical ragas. You're not sure how you measure up, but no one seems alarmed. The whispering historian returns with an evening encore. This time she murmurs about grain tariffs under Akbar and the unusual length of bed curtains in the province of Lahore. You marvel at her ability to make taxation sound like rainfall. You could listen to her list irrigation schedules for hours, which is fortunate, because that's exactly what she's doing. A scholarly uncertainty drifts in, as gently as your hammock. Some records claim the nap sessions were used to stage secret political negotiations. Visitors would arrive asleep, whisper their proposals mid-dream, and depart before full consciousness returned. Whether these naps were real or very theatrical is anyone's guess. You rolled to your side just enough to feel the temperature shift under your cheek. The pillow here is stuffed with a rare blend of rose petals and cinnamon bark once reserved for visiting royalty. You're not visiting, but you are horizontal and available, which is close enough. The moon hangs above like a porcelain coin, silent and nosy. You stare at it once, blink twice, then return to your calling. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel like the entire empire is sleeping with you. Midnight has arrived, but you would never know it. There are no clocks here, just the gentle signs of passage, cooler air, longer shadows, and fewer interruptions. The palace has entered its softest phase, and so have you. Your breathing now echoes faintly against the silk canopy overhead. It's not sound, exactly more the idea of sound. The kind of hush you only get when a place has been quiet for so long that even the furniture forgets how to creak. The musician of repose is still tapping gently, though his patterns are slower now, one beat every 30 seconds. It's less a rhythm than a suggestion. You suspect he started napping between strikes. You respect that. Your historical fact for tonight's stretch of dreamful duty. Shah Jahan's court once hosted a week-long sleep symposium, where philosophers, mystics, and bureaucrats debated the nature of dreams, consciousness, and the ideal number of pillows for state-approved rest. The official conclusion: 3 pillows, but only if one is shaped like a fish. No one explained why. Your hammock is now still, not from lack of wind, but because you've entered the stilling phase, a part of the nap where no movement should occur unless it's symbolically resonant. You consider raising an eyebrow, but decide against it. Too political. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mughal palaces employed scent librarians whose job was to rotate fragrances throughout the night based on the planetary hour. Cardamom for Mercury, vetiver for Saturn, myrrh for Mars. You are currently inhaling something that smells like roasted almonds and rain. You're told that means Venus is in a good mood. The whispering historian has taken a break. Her replacement is a teenage apprentice who nervously reads aloud from a scroll about ancient bed taxes. He stammers through the line, a levy of 3 dinars per embroidered coverlet, and pauses, awaiting your reaction. You snore gently in approval. He writes it down as a sign of cosmic affirmation. Outside the pavilion, fireflies flicker in the hedges. A few sneak through the latticed screens and hover near your fingers. One lands briefly on your thumb. You consider it a tiny, glowing handshake. From the universe, you're reminded of something from earlier, a breeze, a page, a spoon dipped in something sweet. You don't remember when it happened or if it did, but your mind replays it anyway, like a bedtime encore. The palace is now echoing with half memories and half songs. No one minds. Some of the best moments never actually occurred. A scholarly uncertainty glides in, yawning slightly. Some say the nap-taker position was part of a larger cosmic experiment, ordered by the emperor, a belief that one human, if perfectly relaxed, could restore harmony to the entire court. Others argue it was just a very expensive excuse to avoid meetings. Both theories feel valid. The moon has shifted now, drawing an arc through the sky that lands in your lap like a silver scarf. Your hammock rocks slightly, no breeze, just gravity politely nudging you toward sleep. And somewhere, deep in your mind, a door creaks open. Behind it, a garden. In the garden, a sharp eye. On the sharp eye, a book that reads itself aloud. And slowly, steadily, you listen. You awaken briefly, not from noise, not from need, but from a shift in texture. The silk beneath your shoulder has warmed from your body heat, and the cool edge of the pillow calls to you like a distant drum. You turn, slowly, artfully, as if orchestrating a new phase of the nap. The moon is beginning its descent, its light thinner now, more uncertain. Around the pavilion, shadows have grown long and shy. The flickering of the oil lamps grows quieter too, as if even fire can get sleepy. Servant adjusts the curtain with the delicacy of someone threading a cloud through a keyhole. He bows, backs away, and leaves the faint scent of cloves in his wake. You take it in without comment. Words are morning sport. Now for tonight's historical treasure. In the later years of Aurangzeb's rule, nap practices were still recorded. In court life, though they had shifted to more austere settings, bare mats, no attendance, and napping only during non-prayer hours, the empire had grown more orthodox. The nappers? Far less pampered, but here, in Shah Jahan's golden age, you're still cradled in indulgence. The musician of repose has switched to a wind instrument now. A bansuri, maybe. It exhales a single note every minute, just enough to prove he's alive and gently competent. And here's something strange and delightful. Some Mughal courtiers trained birdsmen as specifically to mimic lullabies. Yours is named Farouk, and he perches above you now, cooing a half-memorized tune from last week's rain. He gets a few notes wrong, but you forgive him. He's trying. A new figure approaches quietly, wrapped in linen the color of moonlight. It's the sleep interpreter. She doesn't speak, but she's carrying a bowl filled with lentils, silver dust, and flower petals. She stirs it once, watching the way things float. This is apparently meaningful. You blink, and she notes it in a small book. No questions asked. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some believed that dreams near dawn, called Fajr whispers, were messages from future descendants. Entire dynastic policies were altered based on these hazy, often wildly inaccurate bedtime prophecies. Somewhere, a tax policy was once changed because someone dreamt of a turtle. Your body, still and warm, now feels barely tethered, like it might rise slowly and bump against the ceiling beams. You feel expansive, timeless, slightly almond dash flavored. And as always, the scholarly fog rolls in. Some argue that the position of nap-taker was invented entirely by the poet court, a fictional role created to lampoon court excess. Others insist multiple references to the roll across imperial ledgers indicate it was quite real. No one can agree, and frankly, no one has the energy to argue too hard. Outside, the stars are starting to dim, embarrassed perhaps by how much they have been staring. The first pale strands of pre-dawn light have begun to tease the horizon. It is not morning yet, but it is thinking about it. Your eyes open just slightly, not because you're done sleeping, but because even dreams must pause to stretch. And so you do, just a little, and then let go again. Somewhere between one breath and the next, the world begins to change. The warm darkness of night pulls away. thread by thread, like a shawl being carefully folded. You are not awake, exactly, but you are no longer deeply asleep. You hover. Dream-adjacent. The fabric of your hammock is cool again, refreshed by night air. Your face is turned slightly toward a window. If you squint, you can just see the gray-silver edge of the Yamuna River in the distance. It hasn't woken either. It glides silently, like it knows how to keep a secret. A servant leaves a cup of warm water on a tray near your head. It's infused with tulsi leaves meant to ease the soul back into the world gently, one aromatic sip at a time. You do not drink it yet. The ritual says to wait for the first call of a cold bird. Let's indulge a historical fact while we wait. Court physicians in the Mughal Empire sometimes prescribed dream diets. Certain foods were believed to produce specific dreams. Spinach might lead to prophetic visions, sweet rice to emotional clarity, and dried apricots to absolutely nothing but gas. Naturally, all of this was written in beautiful calligraphy. You hear something now, the early whisper of brooms sweeping the palace floor. A subtle, rhythmic hush, like someone sketching the morning into being. The musician of repose has fallen. Asleep, truly. He lies curled like a comma near your sharp eye, his bronze bowl resting beside him. A page will likely write him up later, but not harshly. Even the artists must nap eventually. Your bird, Farouk, lets out a snort-like chirp. Perhaps he too dreamt of turtles and taxes. His feathers are puffed up, and one small foot dangles over the side of his perch. A clumsy poet of the skies. Obscure cultural detail. Mughal-era dream manuals were often illustrated, not with diagrams, but with little watercolor scenes, clouds shaped like letters, goats wearing crowns, or disembodied eyes floating over rivers. You once flipped through one. You think you may have dreamed the same images before you saw them. Or perhaps after. The whispering historian has gone, replaced by silence so well practiced it feels curated. Not empty, but intentionally arranged. Like a museum of hush. A scholarly shrug arrives with the scent of jasmine. Some historians wonder if these elaborate napping rituals were a way to soften the egos of powerful men, teaching patience, humility, and rest. Others think it was all performance, a way to impress visiting dignitaries with how rich and bored the empire had become. Perhaps both are true. You move your hand slightly across the sheet. The fabric responds like water smooth, yielding. Grateful, a bell chimes in the distance, clear and high. The coal calls finely, its note falling like a drop of honey through the sky. And now the world begins again, but not too quickly. No need to rush. The empire is still asleep. And for a few more heartbeats, so are you. Dawn doesn't burst into the Mughal palace. It seeps in, slowly, reluctantly, like a shy guest who's early to the party and isn't quite sure where to stand. Light creeps across the marble floor, golden and delicate, touching everything with the cautious enthusiasm of a new servant on his first day. You are waking up now. Sort of. Your eyes remain closed, but your senses are starting to whisper to one another like gossiping courtiers. Was that sandalwood? Your nose asks. Did the pillow just sigh? Your ear replies. The world is stirring, and so are you, but only slightly. The nap is not over. It is simply evolving. You shift your position, just a little. It is the kind of movement that would be imperceptible to most people. But here, in this palace of ritual and watchful scribes, it is a seismic event. The dream recorder perks up. His pen scratches eagerly across the parchment. Subject exhibits transition. Posture, possibly heralding spiritual renewal or the mild need to pee. Here's today's historical bite to chew softly. In the Mughal calendar of royal conduct, yes, there was such a thing. Certain days were designated for deep rest, during which no decrees could be signed, no decisions made, and even letters were composed in poetic meter to slow things down. The emperor himself was expected to recline more than usual. The empire, quite literally, slowed to a nap. The hammock beneath you is now warm with the residue of sleep. A fresh cotton sheet is offered, crisp and cool from being kept overnight in an earthen pot. You accept it with a graceful nod that you hope conveys both appreciation and utter detachment. The scribe records noble acquiescence, possibly symbolic. Outside, the morning birds begin a gentle argument. Their calls bounce off the sandstone courtyards like playful insults, flirtation with feathers. The first flutist begins to play near the fountain, selecting a tune known for encouraging dignified alertness. It works, barely. Here's an obscure cultural tidbit that floats in like a drowsy butterfly. Some Mughal scholars believed that if you sneezed in your sleep and didn't wake, it was a sign you had shed a burden in the spiritual realm. A servant once sneezed 3 times and was given a silver bangle and the afternoon off. The whispering historian returns, this time carrying a tray of dream reports. She quietly reads from last night's logs. Someone dreamt of a fish swimming through a field of marigolds. Another dreamt of a tax collector made entirely of paper, who folded himself into a swan and flew away. All were noted. None were questioned. A scholarly uncertainty rustles like leaves outside the pavilion. It remains unclear whether the Mughal nap ceremonies were intended to promote enlightenment or simply to create the illusion of perfect stillness in a world full of chaos. Perhaps that distinction didn't matter. Perhaps the performance was the point. The sharp eye beside you has been freshly made. A few officials wander by to nod politely at your general existence. You nod back minimally, with restraint. A nod too enthusiastic would be unbecoming. Your bird, Farouk, lets out a confused honk and then pecks at your blanket. Perhaps he is dreaming, too. And just as the morning sun presses its golden thumbprint on the far wall, you take one final breath beneath the sheet and drift again. If late morning has a texture, it's this: buttery sunlight, soft footfalls on oiled wood, and the faint crunch of dates being sliced on a copper tray somewhere out of view. You are floating between sleep and ceremony now. The nap continues not out of necessity, but out of principle. You are setting an example, and it must be set with extreme commitment. Today is a formal rest day. This means your nap is now political. You are, for the next hour or two, the human symbol of imperial calm. All activity in the palace must proceed at a pace that respects your slumber. The pigeon feeders walk slower. The scribes dip their pens more softly. Even the fountain has been slightly adjusted to gurgle in a more soothing frequency. And here, your historical fact of the day. On formal rest days, courtiers were expected to wear lighter colors, avoid heated debates, and refrain from abrupt laughter which could disturb the dream currents. Violators were not punished, but they were offered very strong chamomile as a warning. Servant tiptoes and carrying a tray of sugared almonds, an ink brush, and a scroll labeled "Important, but not urgent." This scroll will remain unread until you've shown signs of waking. Which, let's be honest, won't be anytime soon. Obscure cultural detail incoming. It was once believed that an unbroken nap cycle lasting exactly 108 minutes would ensure a week of good luck, provided you didn't speak for the first 5 minutes afterward. This resulted in many awkward breakfast silences in noble homes. Silence, but with excellent posture. Farouk, your increasingly opinionated bird, hops onto your shoulder and tucks his head beneath his wing. A rare show of solidarity. You are both dreaming now, each in your own species-specific way. A new whispering historian appears, this one very old, very gentle. He recites a list of forgotten Mughal bridge names and describes their structural quirks. One was shaped like a spiral. Another had no handrails and required spiritual balance. You have no idea what any of this means, but it is deeply soothing. You shift your knee slightly, and a nearby poet gasps and scribbles a haiku, something about royal curvature. The poem is tucked into an archive where it will never be read again. But that, too, is part of the ritual. Scholarly uncertainty drips in with the scent of cardamom tea. Some believe these nap ceremonies were inherited from Persian mystic practices. Others say they evolved from older Indian temple sleep rituals. No one quite knows when a nap became a state function, but once it did, no one dared revoke it. The emperor himself passes by, not directly, but behind a screen. He pauses. The silence around you grows denser, more reverent. You twitch slightly, just enough to appear receptive to divine whispers. The emperor's astrologer nods solemnly. He takes it as a good sign. You do not speak. You do not move again. You are the quiet heart of a noisy empire. And somewhere in the folds of your dream, a fish-shaped pillow drifts lazily downstream. By midday, the air hangs heavy with incense and half-spoken thoughts. You are still asleep, sort of. You've entered that rare and sacred phase known in Mughal circles as the floating hush. Not quite nap, not quite trance, but a velvety in-between where the body lingers and the spirit loiters. Your face is bathed in indirect sunlight, filtered through an embroidered linen canopy. The designs above you, peacocks, pomegranates, and what appears to be a dancing goat sway slightly in the breeze. You wonder dimly if that goat has been dancing since dawn. You hope it gets a break. Your historical fact for this soft hour in Emperor Akbar's palace. There existed an official post titled Guardian of Repose, whose only task was to ensure that sacred nap spaces remained undisturbed by messengers, court summons, or particularly loud monkeys. It was said that this person once tackled a trumpet player mid-toot. Their pension was generous. At the moment, the Guardian of Repose stands near your pavilion entrance, arms folded, frown measured. A child wandered too close earlier barefoot, bearing a mango. The Guardian gently turned them around with a single finger and a look of such intense serenity it could tranquilize a horse. Inside, the musician of repose has shifted again from bowl tapping to water harp. He drips a slow rhythm onto a stretched skin drum, each droplet echoing like a thought you haven't quite finished. It's abstract percussion, avant-garde napping music, obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mughal nobles believed dreams could be stored in cloth. Special dream shawls called Neendposh, were embroidered with symbols meant to catch and retain dreams, which were then interpreted weeks later over a polite breakfast of lentils and strong tea. You are currently sleeping beneath one. Whether it's catching anything remains unknown. The whispering historian is back with another scroll, this one describing ancient royal bath temperatures and the philosophy of lukewarmness. You hear a phrase that stays with you: water should neither startle nor bore. Honestly, it could be a life motto. You roll slightly, elbow grazing the edge of the pillow. This is known as a second turning and is immediately noted in the dream ledger. The scribe writes with reverence, a decisive turn at 12:23, possibly foreshadowing the emergence of clarity or leg cramp. A scholarly uncertainty floats in through a slit in the curtain. Some late period. Mughal documents suggest the nap-taker role transitioned from royal restmaster to silent advisor, someone whose wordless presence at strategy meetings served as a living reminder to breathe, reflect, and perhaps do nothing for a while. Whether this was effective is unclear, but it's undeniably stylish. The birds are quieter now. Even Farouk is silent, either deep in sleep or plotting something poetic. Outside, the sun has hit its peak and begun its gentle retreat. Shadows stretch lazily across the sandstone tiles. The nap is entering its golden stage. You remain unmoved, perfectly still, beautifully idle. You are now in the Empire's most delicate hour, the late afternoon. Swoon, a time so rich with sleep that even the wind seems to sigh a little more slowly. This is when palace life reaches its softest, and you, our dear nap-taker, become the unofficial sundial of tranquility. The hammock creaks once, politely. You haven't moved in over an hour. The attendants grow mildly concerned, not for your health, but for documentation. A young scribe taps a colleague. Should we log stillness with no observable breath? The answer, after much whispered debate, is yes. A new line is penned. Subject exhibits transcendental inactivity, possibly entering nap enlightenment. Today's historical pearl. Some Mughal poets were commissioned to compose lullabies exclusively for noble sleep ceremonies. These were called ghazals of stillness, and they were so gentle that reciting them at full volume was considered emotional vandalism. You've just heard one, though whether in a dream or reality is uncertain. The whispering historian now murmurs from behind a painted screen. Her voice describes the architectural dimensions of nap chambers in ancient Kabul. You learn, almost against your will, that the ideal ceiling height is just tall enough for dreams to stand upright. This sentence floats around your brain for a while, looking for a place to sit. Obscure cultural tidbit. In one court legend, a man claimed he could plant dreams in others by standing beside them while holding a warm stone. He charged 2 gold coins per vision and was eventually arrested for tax evasion. His stones, however, sold quite well at local markets for years. The musician of repose has, perhaps understandably, fallen asleep. A servant tries to wake him with a feather. He swats it away and mutters something about rhythm being conceptual. No one argues. You stretch one toe under the blanket. Slowly, lazily. It takes 17 seconds. The ripple of movement causes a nearby scholar to drop his pen. It is done, he whispers. What is done remains unclear. Outside, someone sneezes. 3 heads turn. Was it dream releasing? One murmurs, or just bad melon? A decision is never reached. A scholarly uncertainty drifts in with the scent of cumin. Some Mughal records refer to a sleep festival, an annual day when all courtly business halted and everyone, literally everyone, was required to nap in public. The origin of this festival is disputed. Some say it began as a protest. Others say it was simply very hot. You, of course, nap professionally. Not because it's hot. Not because it's fashionable. Because someone must. And as the sun begins to dip below the filigree walls, as sandalwood curls in the air like quiet ribbon, as your own breath seems to pause between heartbeats, you remain still, silent, sacred in your slumber, a portrait of royal stillness that even the heavens dare not interrupt. Evening has come again, folding over the palace like the final page of a book you almost finished reading. The Mughal sky fades from rose to indigo, and the stars begin to blink lazily, as if just now remembering their shift has begun. You have been asleep, or almost asleep, for nearly a full day, and the empire has allowed it, even celebrated it. The flickering lamplight returns, casting golden petals across the floor, as though the very air is decorated in your honor. You have become the empire's bedtime wish, the embodiment of surrender. A person-shaped lullaby. Your hammock no longer sways. It rests now like a boat that has reached its shore, still, tethered, and deeply respected. The final historical gift of the evening. Toward the end of the Mughal dynasty, during the chaotic 18th century, references to the nap-taker vanish from court records. Some say the title was quietly dissolved amid political unrest. Others believe the last nap-taker simply never woke up. A symbolic departure, if ever there was one. As always, historians disagree, but here, within these candle-lit walls and sandalwood breezes, your post endures. A revival of a forgotten art, not just sleeping, but sanctioned slowness. You are the reminder that the body need not always act. The mind need not always race, and history itself once paused for a good nap. And now your final obscure cultural tidbit. A rare Mughal bedtime tale describes a valley where sleep was currency, and the wealthiest were those who dreamt the deepest. Travelers who could rest for 7 days straight were declared ambassadors of peace and gifted a coat made entirely of swan feathers and soft sighs. The whispering historian returns one last time, not to read, but to hum. A quiet sound, somewhere between a lullaby and a prayer. It melts into the walls. It climbs the curtains. It wraps around your ears like spun dusk. Farook. The bird stirs once, then settles. You've earned his respect. Even the cat, Tilla, returns not to bring anything, but simply to curl up by your head and sleep, a whiskered echo of your repose. A final scholarly uncertainty. It's unclear whether the role of nap-taker was truly understood by the emperors or merely tolerated as a charming indulgence. Some letters refer to it as a minor post with major quiet, others as the only thing keeping the court from collapse. Both descriptions seem accurate. And now your breath deepens. No one is watching anymore. Not the scribes, not the guardian of repose, not even the emperor himself. You've become a landscape, a gentle hill beneath a cotton sky. The empire rests because you do. And so let it all go now. Let the marble floor vanish slowly into the quiet beneath your feet. Let the soft hum of ancient music dissolve into the silence between your thoughts. There is nothing more to remember, no details to hold, no roles to play. The story has finished, but you haven't left it. You're simply floating above it now, gently, like a feather that has forgotten it once had wings. Breathe in lightly, through your nose. Let the air taste faintly of rose and something older. Breathe out slower this time. Like your breath is a curtain catching in a breeze, feel the sheet, wherever you lie now, as it cradles you in this world instead of a Mughal pavilion. The same softness, the same permission to do nothing, be nothing. Simply exist. Your body is safe. Your mind is full, but not heavy, and time has lost interest in you. That's the real ending, not a last sentence or a final fact, but the soundless surrender of thought itself. So wherever you are, Karachi, Cairo, Kansas, doesn't matter. The world outside will continue spinning. But in here, within this one quiet corner of sleep and story, you are still, perfectly still. And even if your eyes flutter open in a few hours, you'll carry the stillness with you. A softness tucked somewhere behind your ribs. A velvet hush, wrapped like a ribbon around your spine. You've napped like royalty tonight. And the empire thanks you. Sleep. Well, and stay dreaming.